Hey everybody, my name is Rich Lennon and I am the Simple Real Estate Investor. And today I'm talking property management, and specifically I'd like to talk about evictions. And this is a pretty consistent objection I hear from people about, hey, why they can't get past the mindset of being able to maybe property management with virtual assistants offshore. And evictions is actually one of the easier ones to handle offshore. Lawyers, they want money, but lawyers get paid to go to court all the time. And, finding an efficient model, like how do I leverage that? And how do I, not pay as much as I want to, but like still take care of somebody if like, hey, I want to make sure I get them evicted. And if I'm not doing it myself and I'm not doing it through a property manager, what's the best way to do it? So there's a couple steps, right? So if you don't pay, like all of our rent is due on the 1st, and we give a 5-day grace period till 5 p.m. on the 5th. So even though that's actually not required by law, and everybody seems to think it is, but it's not, it really is something that you should give your tenants, right? Give them a grace period. I've seen people cut that to 3 days, but give them 5 days and give them till 5 p.m. But if you don't pay me by 5 p.m. on the 5th, you trigger a couple things in my business. A, of course, you trigger a late fee, right? You're late, 505. If you're watching my videos, you know you pay online. There's a timestamp. You know if you paid late. And so there's a late fee that goes on it, but also now you're late and I need to start the eviction process. I don't care who you are, at 5:01 p.m. on the 5th of every month, we start the eviction process. Like, you can always stop the eviction process. If you go somewhere and you're talking to a tenant or you figure out a situation and you work something out, it's fairly easy to stop the eviction process. You just withdraw it, or you don't move forward. And so, but you cannot stop what you have not started, right? So you need to make sure that at 5:01 p.m., by the way, your property manager works for you full time. He's still working at 5:01 p.m. on the 5th, or she's still working at 5:01 on the 5th. And their job is to send out the pay or quit, right? So we use click to mail, and it's a standardized form. And, we have databases that's all of our tenants' information. So we just fairly simply copy it over into a templated letter and click to mail, and we send it. And so in Virginia, it's not required certified mail. If it's a particularly obstinate tenant, we might send certified mail, but you can send certified mail, you can send registered mail, you can send regular mails, and so you have a lot of options. But we start the process of the pay or quit at 5:01 p.m. on the 5th. Okay, so far, that's something that can totally be done from India, right? So now the 5-day pay or quit. You wait 5 days, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And so now you've got a full-time dedicated employee that's waiting for the 10th of every month, right? And then now they go and they file the unlawful detainer. Now, this can be tricky. Now, in my area, there's no way to do this online. I've been told in some areas you can actually do it online, but in mine you cannot. So what we did was we reached out on Facebook to the local universities, and we sought law students we used, I'm in Richmond, Virginia, so we used VCU. And we went out to some of the law students and we said, hey, if I kick you $50, will you go and will you file this unlawful detainer? So they go down to the courthouse. They're down there. They're feeling like a lawyer. It's a good win for them. It's a good payday for them. You might need to filter them a little bit, right? So like most things you've seen with me, whether it's a virtual assistant or a tenant, I put people through filters. So you might want to put that law student through a filter, but they can go file that unlawful detainer for you, and they can do it fairly inexpensively for you. And so you shouldn't hesitate to go out and use them to do that. Now, the big gun is now if you've done the 5-day pay or quit, then you do the unlawful detainer, you get a court date, now you have to go to court. Well, you as the owner, you're not going to go to court, and your virtual assistant in India is certainly not going to go to a court. I would not encourage you to send your law student to court, but rather you should send an attorney to court. In my area, since I do all the work for that attorney until I literally tell them when to show up and give them the information, I only get charged like $250 to do that eviction, right? So, and by the way, if I pass that eviction on to my tenant, whether or not I can collect or not, kind of depends on my process, that they have real estate, whatever. So But I can basically get a tenant evicted for $250 to an attorney and $50 to the law student. Now, my 5-day pay or quit, who wrote my 5-day pay or quit? Well, of course, the attorney that eventually might represent me in court, right? So the unlawful detainer, I sent videos up because you have to do, the unlawful detainer is different in my counties here, right? And filling out the information is different. But you can outsource those two pieces, right? And so through a click, we use Podio. It's literally a one click, does a mail merge, sends the information out of click to mail, does them the pay or quit. On the 10th, my property management contacts our previously filtered local college students that are attorneys to be, and they go down and they have the right mindset and they go out and they fill out all the unlawful detainers, right? And then we're still negotiating with the tenant, right? You're still going through the process, but ideally you're still trying to collect the money. You can always withdraw the unlawful detainer, right? And then if it gets all the way to court, now you have an attorney show up that day in court. Your property manager is still managing the situation up to the day before, right? And then if the attorney has to show up, the attorney shows up, gives us a $250 bill, I get the eviction, and now the tenant's out. It's actually a fairly simple process and fairly easy to manage offshore. Like, I wasn't going to go to court anyway, right? And so you got to send an attorney to court. Like, that's the right thing to do. You can't sell a property management manager to court. I mean, you can't make a property manager represent you, at least in Virginia. But just pay $250. If you've screened your tenants, you're only doing this a couple times a year. And so this price point is a pretty simple one, right? So then do that. And now you get your verdict, right? And then now you have to file the writ. So the attorney who gets possession of the house, hopefully the day that they're in court, goes down to the courthouse, files the writ with the sheriff. That's their job. They get compensated. Their $250 includes that writ of possession. And now the attorney's out. The attorney doesn't follow up with anything, right? So the attorney comes in for a quick one hit, works 2 to 3 hours. You pay them $250. It was well worth it to you. Your attorney's feeling pretty good about it. That was well worth it to them, right? It's a win-win. Now you have a writ of possession, at least in Virginia, you get a writ of possession, right? And then you got to wait to whenever the sheriff's going to come out. And now, of course, you have to go out and you have to organize getting somebody out of the house, right? The sheriff's going to do that for you, right? So if you have a business and you already have a bunch of homes, you probably have a contractor or someone that you can pay to go out, change the locks that day, maybe even put their belongings on the curb, just depending on the rules of the situation and what you're supposed to do, what you're allowed to do, what you should do. Kind of varies a little bit, but you can absolutely pay a general contractor to go out there, or a handyman to go out there, or a handyman and 4 of his buddies to go out there to move all that stuff for you. And you don't have to be there. The property manager, who is a simple, pretty process. If you set down, these is what has to happen in this situation, you train them through 1 or 2 times of this. This actually becomes a fairly simple thing. And don't get me wrong, we don't want to be evicting anybody. Evicting people is expensive. Try to collect the money. If you evict them, you got to find another tenant. So you have vacancies, you have renovation costs. It's not a good situation for anybody. Avoid it at all costs. But if you have to, it's really not that complicated. Your virtual assistant can absolutely handle it. You don't need to be involved. Your expenses are minimal, and you're protected by an attorney in this spot. It's a pretty good deal. So if your obstacle for not taking an offshore virtual assistant is the legal system, then you need to change your mindset, because there are a bunch of people who will work within the legal system for you for a fee. Right? All right. My name is Rich Lennon, and I am the Simple Real Estate Investor. I hope that helped. I hope we simplified that process a little bit, and I hope that you don't allow that to be an objection to moving forward with the virtual assistant offshore for your property management. That would be a huge mistake. It's a fairly simple process. All right? Have a good one.